Dying Light 2 was a great generic time. The parkour, the city, the combat. Did I mention the parkour already? Dying Light 2 is a game you should pick up now or in the future if you want to have a fun time. Dropkicking someone like it's the WWE doesn't get old. I found myself always wanting to come back and play the game, whether that be finding more inhibitors, windmills, or just parkouring the open world. This game needs to be up there with Spider-Man in terms of best movement systems, but I wish this was the same when it came to playing the main story. Dying Light 2's main problem is its story. Techland went from making a Shaun of the Dead cult classic to Army of the Dead. This game lacks a good protagonist, villain, supporting characters, impactful choices, and most importantly, well-designed story missions. I should have known this as soon as I got past the intro. Although we did get into the gameplay quicker, which was really good, where was the excitement? Dying Light 2 opens with some end of the game vibes, while the first one opens with it seeming like it's the end of the game. Aiden isn't fleshed out enough, the groups and the other characters just come and go. There's no stakes, you're just going through the motions, sadly. Dying Light 2's main story is the reason why this game was a generic but great time. Yo, what's good? You already know I'm KenWal, and Dying Light 2's story prevents itself from being a worthy sequel because most missions play like a broken tape.
You don't know shit.
Many missions were not engaging due to the fact that the gameplay design was just off. You were either getting interrupted by cutscenes or just doing monotonous activities.
Large red box with gold trim. That's where I stored my shoes.
What the fuck? Gameplay is the most important thing in a game because I don't know if you guys know this, it's a game, but story is also important as well, especially when you make it 20 hours of the game. So you're damn right I'm gonna ding this game on its story. Today, we're going to talk about how Dying Light 2's story hurts the game more than people think. I found it a little hard making this video because I gotta admit something. I'm biased. I love Dying Light 2. Also, the lead designer responded to my tweet. He's a big rap fan, by the way. Seriously, I think it's important to admit that because it tells you that this is just an opinion and it's up to you to play the game to find out for yourself.
Is that a problem for you? Is there any problem whatsoever?
Most times, the sequel is better than the first. Batman Begins, then you had The Dark Knight. Godfather Part 1, then you had Godfather Part 2. There's Paddington, and then there's Paddington 2. Remember, if we're kind and polite, the world will be alright. Why is that so goddamn hard? I really enjoyed the first story for Dying Light, and apparently that makes me rare.
Okay.
We can argue if the story was good or bad all day, but you can't argue that Dying Light's main story was more entertaining and engaging to play through compared to the second game. Let's first talk about a certain character that is important, that is written terribly, and is not as good as Kyle Crane. Found Aiden to be a bad protagonist because he is compassionless, inconsistent, and has a reaction time worse than a snail. This game's events seem like they happen in a bubble, and because of that, it greatly hurts Aiden's character. It makes him feel less like a character. Aiden Babaden is willing to do anything to find his sister. He doesn't really care for the city and the people. At least that's the vibe I got. This is prevalent during the first section of the game, where he has to investigate who killed one of the peacekeepers. My man switches sides more than a bisexual. As soon as someone offers a way to get to the center, Aiden jumps right at the opportunity, which has little to no consequences. Another example is how he is so shaken up after the fact that Alberto died, but never brings it up to the peacekeepers. I'd imagine there'd be a pretty big beef between these two after this. I betrayed the peacekeepers a couple times, yet Aiden nor the peacekeepers act like it happened. They just brush it over. Some story beats boil down to choice, but that just made Aiden and the events you go through seem meaningless and not thought out. Not only were the choices not impactful that much, it made Aiden inconsistent and confusing. Again, Aiden without any choices conflicting with his original character is only purely focused on getting his sister. That's cool, he's a pilgrim, he's used to sticking to his own. Cyberpunk's consistency with the world, the events, and the choices is a great example of pulling this off, because V was affected by each outcome, so when big choices like killing yourself presents itself, It's not out of nowhere, especially if you pick the Go Silent in the Night earlier in the game. Techland, go hit up your Poland brothers at CD Projekt Red for some help on designing choices. Y'all named one of the best weapons in the game after them, so this shouldn't be a problem. The way I played Dying Light 2 was I would play a couple main missions, then just go off and explore and do a bunch of side activities. This really helped mask the repetitive and boring main missions. Look, I'm not gonna say the first game had the best designed missions, but at least they didn't try and turn you into a goddamn electrician. How many times in Dying Light 2 where the main mission mostly had you trying to turn on power, or worse, getting shoes? Like, most missions, the gameplay was interrupted by just drawn out cutscenes. I can still remember missions in the first game, like the one where Roger Craig Smith delivered an Oscar-type performance.
You goddamn stupid fucking kid!
The radio tower mission in the last mission. I could ignore all that other stuff that I mentioned earlier if the gameplay was better. The lack of care and thoughtful design with the main missions is what made Dying Light 2 hurt. In a report, a dev at Techland said that the story was rewritten like 6 times. I don't know what to be mad at more. Is it the fact that they wrote this thing 6 times and settled on this garbage? Or that they had a better story that some idiot at the top said no to? And I know many people are gonna go like, it's a game, it's not about the story. But the gameplay is in the story. The gameplay sucks with the story. The main missions are just, I hate to say it, but man, this shit was like a Ubisoft game. It was boring. It was not as fun as doing anything else in Dying Light 2. It's just frustrating switching from being completely engaged running around the city and doing activities compared to the main objective. I find that as annoying as when a show is doing really good and then it just ends terribly. Like, come on, the ending is the most important part. You just can't ignore something that vital. Aiden not being a compelling main character, choices that don't have impact, and most importantly, terrible mission design is why Dying Light 2 is a generic but great time.